Born.
Okay, all righty.
You got it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, buddy. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Uh,
Hi.
How are you?
Where were you the last month?
We're opening this college and it's been a massive,
Wait, the one that they put on the.
yeah.
My grandson's coming.
Who's that?
Who you had my grandson once, David Cullen,
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Oh, he's
And we're
coming?
getting Myers to Cal.
Oh, how nice.
He's
Okay,
coming.
very
I
nice.
sent it all out to the.
I'm
you
so
know,
happy.
he goes,
Okay.
"I'm coming."
Yeah, thank God. The reaction has been fantastic. And it's been really the quality of kids who are applying.
They love it.
See the kids we have in this community are super. And so with God's help. So I apologize, but I heard Rachel was great.
They love it. So that. Rachel was
Had a great time.
unbelievable.
Very challenging.
Yeah.
Oh, they're still, oh yeah? Still, oh, that's a good thing. Hi, Ellen, how are you?
Hi, good morning.
Nice to see you. Go to page 170. Vaishlach Yaakov, okay? Look, before we talk about the parasha, we're talking about the parasha in the context of Hanukkah, right? So let's talk about Hanukkah. Let's start with Hanukkah. Good? Good? Ellen, you with me? Yeah,
Yes.
Leslie, you good? You can hear?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the story of Hanukkah? What are we celebrating on Hanukkah? Huh? What are we celebrating?
Few things.
Yeah, so what are they?
Small, one home with a larger army.
Yeah,
Oil was lit for a certain amount of days when there was only enough for one.
right. So what we say something like that Hanukkah is the holiday, just one other one, Purim, that lasts forever. What are we talking about? What about it in terms of what you just mentioned, right? Makes it the forever holiday. It's a forever holiday.
It's not mentioned in the Torah.
It's not mentioned in Torah, which makes it an even bigger question. It's rabbinic and it's forever. So why is it forever? And so is Hanukkah. Purim is forever, and Hanukkah is.
We said that was the only one that.
No, I did I? No.
Maybe not.
These are both forever, yeah? They're both forever. So what makes it the forever? Let's go back. What makes the holidays not forever? The biblical holidays that HaKadosh Baruch Hu designed, not that our rabbis designed like Hanukkah, Purim, but the biblical holidays are not forever. When did they end?
When Mashiach comes,
When Mashiach comes, excellent. And why will they end?
we don't really need them anymore.
We don't really need them anymore. Why not?
We'll all be in Israel.
We'll all be in Israel, and we did it. We achieved the purpose of the holiday. So if the purpose, let's take it an example or two, right? If the purpose of Pesach is freedom, right? Liberty, cherut, really. Cherut doesn't mean freedom or liberty. Cherut means an absolute connectedness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu without all the clutter, right? That's what cherut means. We translate it inappropriately as liberty or freedom, but it's not that. Cherut means lacharot, means to engrave. I'm engraved with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's my focus. That's my thing, right? So we still have Pesach now. Why? Because we're not free yet. We're physically free, but we're not emotionally free. We're not spiritually free. We're not intellectually free. And therefore, there'll be a day, and once that day is achieved, Mashiach will then follow that day when we've removed ourselves from all these other chasings and dependencies and whatever that are no longer physical in our case, because the physical slavery ended a long time ago. But am I emotionally enslaved to certain things? Do I use terms like I need? You know, the typical tip-off is I need. When the need goes away and it's replaced with a want, you know, it's a simple example. But when I don't need, but I want, that's a massive level of liberty that we haven't achieved yet. When I don't have dependencies, when I don't have excuses, when I reach that point, then there will be no more Pesach because I did it. achieved full freedom. I checked that, not I, humanity achieved that full freedom. And now we're at the heels of Mashiach, right? And the same thing is true about everybody else. Will we need Yom Hadin? Will we need Rosh Hashanah forever? Why should we? If we're clear-minded and we don't chase what we don't need, and there's an absolute intellectual integrity. Will I need to call myself out once a year and take stock? No, because I won't be fooling myself the rest of the year. Right? So that one says it objectivity and clarity, then the holiday that reminds me to go back into that zone and refocus on that will no longer be needed. And that's why we don't commemorate. When we have a holiday, we engage, we work. Holidays are work times. And that's why initially it used to be that Moshe Rabbeinu would teach the laws of Pesach for a month before, and that was to the exclusion of the other Chagim, right? They say that Moshe Rabbeinu would teach the laws of Pesach a month before in the desert because there's so much there. And the laws of the other holidays would be taught on the holiday days themselves. But what changed over time is that we teach the laws of all the holidays from a month before. Why? Because we want to use the holiday as a growth point, as a growth launch. So when we say the Beracha Shech on a holiday, we're saying, thank you, God, for giving me the opportunity to be back at this place in my life with the opportunity to grow. And as we said years ago in this context, right, we're very different than the Greeks in many ways. We'll touch on more of that in a few minutes. But one of the ways we're different is we look at things as a spiral, right? By design, we come back to the same place in time 1 year after the other, hopefully with the ability to measure the delta of growth relative to that time. So if I come back to Pesach, I want to go like this. Here's Pesach 2023. Here's Pesach 2024. I've grown. And how have I grown? In the context of the things that define my freedom or otherwise. So when we say Shehayanu, I say, thank you, God, for giving me life to grow, to be more, right? If I'm grinding in place, then I didn't do anything. So the holidays will all go away as humanity progresses in general. And as the Jewish people progress in particular, the holidays will go away. And because we're all set. We don't need them. What's never going to go away? Purim and Hanukkah. Why? Good. So let's talk about Hanukkah. What is the story of Hanukkah? What is this? Give me the big story, right? Felicia told me the key defining elements. Now blow it up. Now that you have the context that this will never go away, it means we will never grow out of the need defined by Hanukkah, right? What is it?
The Greeks were trying
Greeks wanted us to assimilate.
our faith and our way of life.
Right.
They were trying to bring way of life and destroy ours.
Okay, so what was their way of life?
The body, loving the body, materialistic things and not spiritual things, like the body is the.
Okay, so let's build on this. First of all, who are the closest people on the planet to the Jewish people? Who's closer than anybody?
The Arabs.
Who? Huh?
Muslim,
In general, big term.
Ottomans.
What is the one language? What is the one language that you can translate a Sefer Torah into? What?
English.
Isn't it translated to Aramaic?
No, it's Greek. Greek. The one language is
Really?
Greek.
That's
Yeah.
Really?
Who is our first cousin from Shem, from the family of Shem?
Oh,
Greek,
that's right. That's right.
right? We're very close to them. The
Right,
one.
right.
Okay. Well, the one language we don't do it, but the one language we can translate a Sefer Torah into is Greek, right? Good. The Greeks are soul brothers to us. In fact, the Gemara brings down that the one land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was considering giving the Jewish people as a promised land, other than the land we got was
Grace.
Greece. Yeah, so there's something very special about these people. Now, what makes them special makes them the greatest threat. Why? Because the Greeks do believe in scholarship. They do believe in God. They believe in God. They don't believe in an involved God, but they believe in God. And they, Rambam quotes them all the time. They're very, very close to us. And that was the threat. The threat was the mityavnim, the assimilated Jews within the Jewish people. And the essence of the war, the overwhelming focus of the war, was not to eradicate the Assyrian Greek forces, which was true but secondary, but it was to subdue the movement within the Jewish people to assimilate. And the movement was brilliant. By the way, it's America. It's America. They're good people. They're God-fearing people. They say, you know what? You want to really relate to God? Relate to his representative right here, right here. And you believe in scholarship? We believe in scholarship. You believe in trying to figure out the spirituality of the world? So do we. But ours is not quite yours. We believe, for example, that if God is perfect and he created man, then God's creation should be perfect. And if you give your creation a brit, then you're desecrating a perfect creation. So why would you do something like that? So the reason that we have the threat of Hanukkah is different than Purim. Purim was a physical existential threat. This was a spiritual existential threat. The reason why we have the holiday of Hanukkah is to remind us of the good people, Marx, who can, God forbid, destroy us because of the likeness in perspective.
It's funny that you said that. I went to Greece this summer, and Jews lived in Salonika, and they were at the top of their game, like
Yeah.
in New York, and then they
Right.
crossed the.
The Nazis
the
came.
Nazis. But in traveling through it, they built the, what's the name of it? I forgot the name of it, but it replicated
I'm telling you,
the Parthenon.
they're very, very, they're very like us. They're really blood brothers. They really are blood brothers. And that's why when they come out with, look, we're not going to tell you don't go to your temple, but we're going to put all gods in there. And isn't it easier to relate to this thing? He's standing right in front of you than to imagine that you're talking to something there. Pashut. And that's why it was so successful. And again, the Greek methodology is the same methodology we struggle with today. We don't really struggle in America. In America, you don't see people, you don't see Jews running to Christianity. You see Jews running to assimilate because it's this Western culture. They're good people. They're honest people. Americans are the best. They're ethical people. They're scholars. They're thinkers. They're writers. They cry about pain in the world. It's the most benevolent country per capita. Nobody gives more money per capita than Americans. They're the greatest people in the world. That's your Greek threat. That's what we fought off. And that's what
I
was
need more of these.
with me, Felicia.
Discussing it today with someone.
Yeah.
How I feel like so many people have gotten into and accepted the American culture in so many ways.
1,000,000%. And by the way, we have also, the enemy is in the building. Our rabbis wrote that the Erev Rav will be inside the Bet Midrash, right? Not outside. The left flank is in the building. He's not outside the building. So when we talk about Hanukkah, we're reclaiming our identity on the most narrow points.
We were talking about it in class last night, how a lot of the rabbis of Mifrashim were influenced by the Greek philosophers,
Yeah.
Aristotle
Yeah.
and so on.
And I'm not-
by great, dealt by great.
They were spectacular people. And you know what? They brought a lot to the world, but they almost finished us. They almost finished us because they were so good. Again, what was worse? I'm sorry to use this thing, but people do. What was worse, the Holocaust or America for the Jewish people? America was worse. America is worse. Maybe 10% of American Jews, maybe 10% of American Jews are Orthodox, 90% are gone. And it used to be 30 years ago, when somebody married out, when somebody married a Goya, they would bring their kids up with Hanukkah and Christmas, so to speak. Now that's finished. There's no more of that. It's finished. So when we talk about Hanukkah, we're talking about the military victory, and we're talking about the, I guess, call it the victory of light, the victory of light. And what is a victory of light? That we personify with the Pach Shemin, right? That we symbolize in our minds with the jug of oil, that we memorialize with the candles. That's the main thing. Our rabbis say an interesting thing, and there's a lot of conversation on this. They say if there was enough oil for one night, right? If there was enough oil for one night, the holiday should be 7. I had enough oil for one night. The holiday should be 7, right? Because it extended 7 over the one I had, not 8, right? So a number of different answers. One answer is that they put 1/8 of that one night's worth of oil, 1/8 in the menorah each night, and it lasted the whole day through the night, like it was done in the Beit HaMikdash. And the other is that we celebrate the military victory one night, which we call the night of the 27th. When we light the first night, we're celebrating the military victory, and then we're celebrating the spiritual victory the rest of the holiday. Okay? And for that reason, we also say that they didn't find the Pach Shemin until the 25th, even though we light the first time on the night of the 24th. So it could be that we're celebrating the military victory one night, and we're celebrating the spiritual victory the other 7 nights, and thus 8. By the way, the other questions that our rabbis ask are also a very strong question. If every holiday in the land of Israel, if we always add days to the holidays in the land of Israel that happen in the land of Israel, why don't we add days to this holiday for outside, right? Isn't the 7 days of Pesach 8 and the 8 days of Sukkot 9? Why don't we add days here? What's that? It's all holidays, the holiday of Chachamim. So what? Very nice. So that's one answer. Very nice. That's one answer. And the other answer is it's Ma'al HaTeva to begin with. We're talking about a holiday that's above nature. We're talking about light. Now, if we're talking about the struggle that we won with the Assyrian Greeks, primarily on the inside, right? On the inside, the Mityavnim, not the Yevanim, the Mityavnim, right? Those on the inside. How do we want to symbolize that struggle? We symbolize that struggle with light, the light of the candles. Here again, our rabbis ask, how could it be that you have a holiday where there's no real mitzvot? There's no real mitzvot. How come? There's one mitzvah for the holiday, 2. There's lighting the candles and saying Hallel, right? So what about making a Seudah? What about not going to work? How come? Because the whole story is embedded in the light of the candles. The light of the candles.
You don't have to make a Seudah.
When did you make a Seudah on Hanukkah? You don't. So it's the light of the candles. Now, let's peel back one more layer, right? Now we understand we had two great victories. One was a military victory, but the military victory was relatively short-lived and local, right? 200 years later, the temple is destroyed. The geographic area removed from the control of the Assyrian Greeks with the victory of the Maccabees was the greater Jerusalem area. We didn't even liberate the entire country. So the military victory is limited. The cultural, spiritual victory is the bigger one. That's your forever victory, right? That's your forever victory. It's above nature, fantastic. And the main reason the rabbis go back and say that the holiday is 8 and can only be 8 inside the country, outside the country, is because it's above nature. Now that goes to the core point, right? This was the warm-up. That goes to the core point. The core point is, what are we celebrating when we celebrate the philosophical, intellectual, spiritual victory, what are we celebrating? And how is it celebrated? Through light. Whenever we use the term light in our learning, right?
Knowledge.
When we say the word, what do we say, Leslie?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. Perfect. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates or, right? What is he creating? He's creating knowledge. When it says Vayad or Vayera Abraham, what is he doing? He's in a prophetic state, a mar'eh. It's not something you see, it's prophetic. So everything, when we use the word or in the Chumash, in the Tanakh throughout, don't look at it as he saw physically, it's he saw intellectually and spiritually.
Enlightened.
Huh?
Enlightened.
Yeah, yeah,
The word enlightened.
exactly. So we hold as Kislev, the month of Kislev, is the month of light. It's the month of knowledge. It's the month of exceptional access, intellectual access. Every month of the year is endowed with something. And therefore, the holiday of Hanukkah could only be in Kislev. Because if Kislev, the month that we're in now, is a month of intellectual breakthrough, of intellectual mastery, of intellectual achievement, unlike any other month, then the month of the spiritual intellectual victory over the Assyrian Greeks could only be in this Kislev. You with me? This is very important. Okay? Yeah. So the battle would only culminate in this month. Couldn't culminate in any other month. The same way you can't have Pesach in any other month but Nisan, because the power of Herut, of being engraved to God, is most pronounced in the energy of the month of Nisan.
So you're saying all battles that Israel was going
No,
to?
no, I'm talking about the spiritual battle in the month of the intellect, the intellectual battle in the month of intellect. This is the month of intellect. This is the month of intellectual breakthrough. And therefore, if I'm going to intellectually break through, the Jewish people are going to intellectually break through, then it can only happen in this month. And therefore, what is the main mitzvah of the month? It's the light. It's to celebrate the intellectual. With me? No?
Getting there. It definitely coincides with this week's parasha.
Perfect with last week's parasha. It's perfect with last week's parasha. By the way, Parashat Vayishlach, let's take a few minutes on that. Parashat Vayishlach can only happen in Kislev. To Felicia's point, it can only happen in Kislev. Why?
Oh, he's enlightened and the whole of B'nai Israel, the whole.
That's exactly right. Yeah, what Yaakov is struggling with, I don't know, he's struggling with the angel of Esav, maybe he's struggling with his physical and practical success. Maybe he was Ish Tam Yoshev Ohalim to begin with, right? He wanted to be the yeshiva boy, he wanted to be fully learning. And then his mother, God tells him, if you want to be the father of the Jewish people, you got to get out there in the real world. And I'm going to send you to the biggest bum out there, my brother, so that he will make you a man, so that Judaism can survive. And then we see Yaakov, right? When he first gets to Lavan, what does he do? He wants to marry Rachel. Why does he want to marry Rachel?
Beautiful.
Huh?
She's beautiful.
Leah was nice looking as well. But why does she want to marry Rachel? Why does he want to marry Rachel? Huh?
The
They
chesed?
both want to, why, Leslie?
Chesed?
No, they both want to skip the physical thing. They both want to leapfrog the physical and go straight to the spiritual. That's what Rachel represents. And when Lavan, based on a prophecy of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, tells Yaakov after he dupes him that we don't do this in our circle, what was he talking about? Wasn't talking about his local custom of bringing the older daughter before the younger daughter. He was talking about on planet Earth, you can't skip the physical and go straight to the spiritual. You got to work it. And that's why Leah is the true mother of the Jewish people. Rachel is the altar mother, right? We have 8 boys from Leah and her, helper. And we have 4 from Rachel and her helper. Is Rachel on the higher level? Absolutely. But we have to build with Leah to get to Rachel 100%. So, to Felicia's point, last week's parasha, when Yaakov is struggling, he starts as Mr. Spiritual, right? He starts as Mr. Spiritual. He goes to the house of Lavan for 20 plus years. He becomes better at beating the system than Lavan, right? He beats him, to use the cliche, at his own game, right? Lavan tells him, he tells Lavan, I'm going to keep the less quality sheep, the striped and the damaged and the spotted, because they bring less on the market. And I'm going to give all the absolutely unblemished ones to you, right? And then what does he do? He puts these sticks in front of the eyes of the sheep while they're mating. And what happens? Instead of being 20% spotted, it becomes 80% spotted, and he becomes super rich. So he beats him at his own game, right? Now, why is that important to us? And why do we have more psukim about Yaakov Avinu than all the other patriarchs and matriarchs put together? Because he's the real thing. He's the most real thing. He's the one that teaches us how to make it in this world. God put us down here for a reason, to struggle with the practical world and beat it with our spiritual spear as our champion. So, last week's parasha, when Yaakov is struggling between the physical and the spiritual, right? As symbolized by this, let's say, angel or whatever that came and struggled with him. It's either an internal struggle or it's a struggle between him and the side of Esav, who is all physical. But in any case, he ends up in a fabulous place. What does he end up with? He wrestles him to a draw. And what happens at that point? He wrestles him to a draw. And what happens?
The morning comes.
Great. And what else happens?
He gets
Huh?
hit.
He gets hit, right? He's permanently impressed on some level. Yeah. And what else happens?
He receives the blessing.
He what?
He receives the blessing.
Yeah. What blessing does he receive?
The name Israel.
Fabulous. He receives the blessing of the name Israel. And what's unique about his name change? What is unique about his name change? Once Abraham's name was changed from Avram, halachically, are you allowed to call him Avram? No. Are you allowed to call Yaakov Yaakov? Yes. So the unique thing about Yaakov's name change is it wasn't exclusive. It's a name add-on. It's not a name change. And why does he get to be called Yisrael? What's the pasuk? Batuka, beautiful. What does that mean in English?
You grappled with, well, angel forces and with men, and you succeeded.
And
You
therefore
overwhelmed.
what? And therefore what?
You are
Did he make it?
victorious.
In the end, he makes it,
You are
right?
victorious.
He makes it.
Mhm.
He leaves the tent. He goes into the real world, to the roughest guy out there, and he beats everybody. He beats everybody.
He retains his
And
spirit.
he what?
He retains his spirit. He was worried about that.
Yeah,
So I went to Shem Be'eda for so many years.
yeah. But in the end, he's us, right? And he gives us the roadmap. Good. So,
Could
yeah.
you just talk about a second, the difference, I mean, I'm guessing that Abraham, he just had an add-on to his name, and you said at the time that it was, he had fulfilled his potential, and
Right.
that's why he
Exactly.
became Abraham. And Yaakov, Yitzchak didn't even get an
Right.
add-on, and Yaakov gets a separate name. Is he not fulfilling his potential, or he's taking on a second identity? Is that what?
He's taking on a dual
Dual
identity.
identity.
Beautiful. He's taking on a dual identity. Very, very nice. And what?
This dual identity that we're talking about, is it supplementing the Esav force that was separate from Yaakov and now it's integrated in him?
Say that again?
Yeah, so when we were learning about, at the time, about Cain and Hevel, you mentioned that there's these two forces, the heaven and the earth, and that they're not integrated, they're separate.
Mhm.
But my question is, because Yaakov represents Kif Eren, is this new name Yisrael also a part of that integration?
I believe so. Yes. You want to explain that a little bit more?
No, I'm asking because it says Sarita im anashim ve'im elokim. So one is a force of physicality and one is a force from the spirit.
Right.
Well,
And you mastered it and you came out on top.
Mm.
So that's exactly it. It's tiferet. So explain what that is.
I'm not very familiar with that. I know the more I read about it, the less I understand. It's very
Okay.
complicated. But from the little bit that I understand is that the way it works in the Sefirot, it's like the energies that come from higher realms, and as they come down into this world, you have the chesed, which is all the way on the right, like complete compassion, giving, no boundaries. That's Abraham. And you have on the other end, you have Yitzchak, which is Gvura,
Right.
which is more restraint, holding back,
Right.
boundaries, limiting yourself from like pleasures and feeling things, like more control. And then Tiferet is mitigating between the two and coming up with a balanced,
Harmony.
yeah.
Beautiful. It's harmony.
I feel
Beautiful.
like that's Yisrael. I feel like that's us as a nation is balancing the two, the spiritual and the.
Yes.
And that's how we're, yeah, that's
Even
how.
though it's like now in Israel, the wars that they are going through is a constant battle between the physical and the spiritual, what we're morally obligated to do and what we need to do
100%.
to get the job done.
Precedent.
100%.
Like that
It's a
is
struggle.
representative of Yisrael, Yaakov, not Yaakov, but Yisrael as
Exactly.
a.
And that's why we're called Bnei Yisrael and not Bnei Yaakov.
Right.
Because Yisrael is really more complete, and it really it identifies the eternal destiny of the Jewish people. Now,
Yitzchak says it before he gives the Berachah, that he sees in the hope that he has the capacity. to hope.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and that's why that's why when we learned it, we held that he knew what he was doing. A couple of minutes into the thing and whatever, and thank you, thank you. Good. Okay, so far, so what we're celebrating is this month of awareness and knowledge. Now, one of the, just a sidebar to this is a month to think complex things through. This is a month to do it. Yeah, the same way that, God forbid, if somebody has a legal case, against against the goy or whatever, we say do it in the month of Adar, the month of Purim, because that month is endowed with that type of victory against outsiders. So if you have a legal case, push it off to March, so to speak. If in terms of Chokhmah, this is the month to immerse in questions and serious, complicated, thoughtful analysis of situations, of our lives, and so on. Because this is a month when the light, when the Ruach HaKodesh, that greater than practical intellectual capacity, is most available to us, right? And that's what we celebrate with the Neirot. Okay, so therefore, we're saying that we have two victories: a military victory and an intellectual spiritual victory. Our primary victory is the intellectual spiritual victory. And that's why we say, for example, do we say Lahadlik Ner Shel Hanukkah? No, I'm sorry. What do we say? I'm sorry. We say Al Hadlakat Ner Hanukkah. We say, like, what do we say? Lahadlik Ner Shel Shabbat, right? We say Lahadlik Ner Shel Shabbat. Over here, we just say Lahadlik Ner Shel Yom Tov. I thank you, God, when we say the Berachah, for giving me the opportunity to light the candles of Shabbat, of Yom Tov. What's the nusach with the Berachah of Hanukkah?
No separation.
There's no separation. Lahadlik Ner Hanukkah, meaning the Ner and Hanukkah are the same thing.
That's nice.
On Shabbat, the candles are one element. The Menucha is another element. They're getting dressed in the dressing of Shabbat is another one. The Seudah is another one. The learning is another one. Tefillot is another one. There are several elements of Shabbat. There are several elements of Yom Tov. There's one element of Hanukkah, one. And it's to embrace the intellectual. That's what it's about, the spiritual, the access. Now, good. Question so far? Okay.
No, it's very nice that you said it's really, really beautiful, because I think what the Greeks were essentially trying to do was that they were trying to create a separation between our intellect and our spirit.
Nice. That's beautiful. I like that.
What I mean by that is, for instance, let's take Aristotle. He says in his famous work that there is an unmoved mover. This force is called the unmoved mover, and he does not interact with humankind. So our intellectual understanding is that there is a God, which is a great thing to come to terms with, especially in the olden times, that they understood that there was a source, but the spirit, right, that you're feeling and that you're not connected. So they made that separation.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's why they were so problematic to us. Because they acknowledged HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not a big bang. There was a primal maker. They acknowledge that. But they say, he's just doing his own thing, nothing to do with us.
He's too high up in the Elyon to
Right.
care about.
He's up in the Elyon, right? Exactly. So this frames Hanukkah. It's the month of knowledge and enlightenment, intellectual enlightenment. It's the holiday of knowledge and intellectual enlightenment. The celebration is about the light, and that's why we say that if someone wants children to be B'nai Torah, right? Spend time and just look at the light. Just look at the light, right? If the rabbis asked, what if the person himself wants to be that? Then she should spend time and just look at the light. Okay, look at the light. That's the focus. Okay, and Yaakov, we said that Yaakov has his struggle with this, and we read about the struggle now, this time of year, in this time of year. Why? Because the story of the parasha is not the story of what was; it's the story of what is. As we've talked about before, whenever I read the Parashat HaShavua, I'm reading about me, I'm reading about my life, I'm reading about my children. It happens to be portrayed in certain people with certain circumstances. But if it wasn't a universal message that's absolutely relevant immediately, then I wouldn't be reading it. Okay? So when I read the Parasha of Vayishlach in the month of Kislev, right around the time of Hanukkah, a few weeks before, it's all comes together, and it's all about that intellectual opportunity and enlightenment. Okay, so far? Great. Okay. All right. Let's touch on a few other things.
It just sounds a little bit like astrology to me.
We have it. We have astrology.
And it just, like, I don't.
We don't have their astrology, but we have our astrology. We have our astrology.
Yeah, I feel like I'm learning it from you, but, it just seems a little scary. With all the energies and.
Okay, so let's make it a little scarier. We'll aggravate you a little bit more. Make it a little scarier. We believe that the planets and the stars have a spiritual component to them. They have a spiritual capacity to them beyond their physical capacity. We believe when you get to the lower heavens, right? The physical heavens are the lower heavens, right? Where the moon and the stars and all that stuff is. We believe that already has a spiritual component. There's nothing benign about the stars. When somebody looks at the sky, it should be moving on a spiritual level as well, because there is spiritual capacity to those beings. So is there a Jewish astrology, so to speak? Absolutely. Are there times a year that have different energies? We know, for example, we should avoid things in the month of Av. We should just avoid things. We know the month of Elul is a month of self-discovery. Why is it that we spend 40 days more? We spend 50 some odd days in Teshuvah from the beginning of the month of Elul. Why? Because the month of Elul is endowed with certain capacities of self-discovery. August, so to speak, or September, depending on the year. But that's the month, that's a great month of self-discovery. And that's the astrological, if you want to call it that, endowment of that month. So yes, we definitely have an element of this. Okay, let's touch on one other point. Some of us learned this in the past, but it's important. It's worth repeating. When we have what we call Hidur Mitzvah, the beautification of a mitzvah, right? We have criteria for that. if I want to beautify a mitzvah, how far above the norm should a person go to fulfill the additional mitzvah of beautifying the mitzvah?
Usually within his means.
What is
financial
it?
means.
Huh?
It's usually within his financial means.
So if somebody, you could buy an etrog for $60, should I spend $1,000? The answer is no. The answer is it's 1.3 and some opinions are 1.5 above the market. So if an etrog is $100, you should spend $130 plus minus, right? Some people would say up to $150. Good. So if you spend $130 to this example, you have the mitzvah of the fulfilling the mitzvah itself, and you have the mitzvah of the hidur mitzvah, the beautification. Good. What is the core mitzvah on Hanukkah? How many?
What do you mean on that link?
1 second. Before I get to the Madrin, what is my core mitzvah on Hanukkah? How many candles do I have to light a night? One. The mitzvah halakha l'maaseh is if somebody lights one candle, they fulfill the core mitzvah, right? And what's the core mitzvah on night 2?
One.
Same thing. What's the core mitzvah on night 8? Same thing. One candle, right? Beauty. So now what are we doing lighting 100% increase on night 2, 200% increase on night 3, 300%, 700%, so to speak, on night 8? What is that? What's going on with that?
You're saying we're beautifying the mitzvah.
Good, but we have a threshold for that. Yes, you're absolutely right. We're beautifying the mitzvah. But my commandment, my obligation to beautify the mitzvah goes up to this ceiling.
Maybe it's about personanes.
Oh, very good. So, so when I get the beautification of the mitzvah, and I couple it with publicizing the miracle, I blow the thing up. I blow it up. Huh?
That's why we-
Beautiful. That's why we put it in the window. That's why we go so far beyond the typical rules of beautifying a mitzvah. Good. So then you would say that the core mitzvah is one candle. Beautification is everything above that. And because we want to make the biggest splash we can, because we want to make the biggest splash, we're going to go 8 nights, 8 candles, right? Now, so then you would say, yeah.
We commit, like we're obligated to do the 8 nights. We're not really beautifying it. It's
Right, and if somebody then wasn't able to buy the full 8 candles, they 100% fulfill the mitzvah with 1 candle per night. Right, our rabbis bring the thing, if someone everybody has to light, every household has to light 1 candle. If a household doesn't have the money, they have to, the father of the household has to sell his shirt, so to speak, to light the candle. But it's only to light 1 candle. And by the way, the flip side of that halakha is that if the Gabayei Tzedakah in the community, right, the SBH, so to speak, mitzvah man people, they have to raise, how much do they have to raise for the person who can't light? 1 candle's worth, not more. But because of Persumei Nisa, we're going to go crazy now.
And is 1 candle also on Shabbat if you don't have to?
I don't know. I would think so. I would think so.
custom. I know my dad used to do it with an extra candle.
Yeah.
What is that?
They had some miracle in Chalab. They had a miracle in Chalab.
He wasn't saying that.
Yeah. No, yeah. They had a lot of them do it.
Do it, but from the Tower family bed and leave.
Oh,
So
but
we do the extra candle for
they're
them.
such big shots. They're such big shots. Some people, they have these things. It's based on the argument between the rabbis on Ner Ishu Beto. The Ner Ishu Beto, a candle or multiple candles for a person and his household. The Ashkenazim say it's every person in the
Oh
household.
my God.
And therefore, you drive to a bar, and that's where the Christmas lights came from. Where did Christmas lights come from? Right? That's where it came from. So we hold Ner Ishu Beto is 1 setup for the whole house. So now we understand a couple of additional new points. We understand that the mitzvah itself is 1 candle per night. And we have a general rule of beautification is 30 to 50% above the baseline mitzvah. In this case, it goes several 100%. Why? Because of Pirsumei Sa. Good. Now, the question becomes, is Pirsumei Sa, where does it rate? Where does it fit? In other words, is Pirsumei Sa as important as the miracle itself? Are the additional candles as important as the first? And the upshot is, the practical question is, if I forgot to say the beracha on the first night, on the seventh night, let's say, I forgot to say the beracha on the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth candle. I didn't light the seventh candle yet. I'm totally in extreme beautification of the mitzvah zone. Can I still say the beracha? Right. So let's go. You can. Excellent. We have a baseline mitzvah, right? Baseline mitzvah on Hanukkah, 1 candle per night. Okay? 1 candle per night means that if, that's what it means. It's 1 candle. Someone says the berachot 100%, not 99, fulfilled his mitzvah. Because we have this massive add-on of Pirsumei Sa, of proclaiming the miracle to as many people as possible, we're going to put as many lights as possible. And because we want to engage in the light thing as deeply as we can, we're going to put as much flames in front of us as possible, right? Enough of the thing. So now the question becomes, but if the core mitzvah is fulfilled with 1 candle, and I'm up to candle 7, I'm in the Hidur mitzvah zone, beautification of the mitzvah zone, not core mitzvah zone, can I say it at that point before I light candle 7? Why or why now? Rachel says yes. Why?
You're impressing on us the importance of the Hidur mitzvah and the, publicizing it. So it becomes its own thing. I don't know, but I have a question.
So let me just finish. Hidur mitzvah can mitzvah dame, right? The Hidur mitzvah, the beautification of the mitzvah, is just as important as the mitzvah itself. What do you mean, ointment on it? Exactly, but the question was, if my primary, good, true, and that's why we're all about the Hidur mitzvah, good. But the question is, can I say the beracha when I already did the mitzvah? I did the core mitzvah already. The core mitzvah is fulfilled with 1. I did the core mitzvah. It's 1, 1, 1. And that's why I want to make it clear. On night 8, the core mitzvah is 1 candle. Everything above that is Hidur, is beautification, right? It's all an add-on for me and for everybody else to get this message as strongly as they can. Yeah? So the question becomes, but can I still say the beracha on the add-on? And to Rachel's point, I can, because in this case, even though the beautification of the mitzvah is so many hundreds of times beyond the normal beautification that we apply to every other mitzvah in the Torah, because the beautification is the point, because the proclamation of the miracle to as many people as possible is the point, for that reason, I can say the beracha until the end, because in this case, the beautification of the mitzvah and the mitzvah itself are considered the same.
I have a few questions.
Yeah. Great.
Okay, first of all, did you say before that if you're giving charity to someone that they don't have lights, you only have to give them 1?
Yes.
How come you don't have to give them all 8 if we're?
No, it's a fabulous question, because now our rabbis say, in fact, Chama Vajah brings down in the Chazon Vajah, Chama Vajah brings down that today, because it's absolutely commonplace to light 8, the Gaba'ei Tzedakah in the community should give for the 8.
Because it's become a custom.
It's so commonplace. You're talking about pennies. And it's so commonplace that let's not call that person out. Let's give that person enough to light the whole thing.
The question is, if it's so important, the Hidur mitzvah, can you say the beracha on the first candle and the second?
Can you split the berachot?
No, I'm just wondering if it's its own thing. Because if you
Can I say beracha again?
Yeah, like it also, my second part is if he's saying it on the 7th, because you forgot on all the first, Does the beracha activate the mitzvah?
Excellent.
Was it not the mitzvah until you said the beracha?
Excellent question. It's an excellent question. What's the relationship of the beracha to a mitzvah? Any beracha to a mitzvah? What is the relationship? Does one beget the other? Does one give me the pass to do the other or not?
Is it the intention behind the action? Like, didn't we say?
It's the intention behind the action. Excellent. So what is the purpose of the beracha?
It's like supercharging, it's activating.
It's supercharging what?
The action.
The upcoming action. Excellent. So if the purpose of the beracha is to get me fabulously in the zone, much more so than I would have been if I light the candles cold, for example. If that's the point of the beracha, then I always want to say the beracha before I light. Now, you're raising a great question, which I haven't heard asked by anybody, and I don't know the answer. Rachel's asking the question of to say the beracha more than once, you can't, because the core mitzvah was finished. But what if I break up my berachot? That I'm going to change your question a little bit, because there's 3 berachot the first night, 2 every other night. So what if I say the first beracha, Adlik Ner Hanukkah, I light the first candle, I fulfill my chiyuv, and then I say Shasani Sim. Can I say Shasani Sim clearly on the 2nd or the 8th? Because I can say Adlik Ner Hanukkah. Can I say it more than once? No. I can't say a separate, oh, so I am answering a question. I can't say a separate beracha.
But if you light without a beracha, and then you light a few, and then you light with the beracha, if you didn't light with the beracha, you still fulfilling the mitzvah?
Yes, because the beracha, we'll wrap with this. The beracha and the action are 2 separate mitzvot. 2 separate mitzvot.
So there's
Saying
two
that
beracha, a beracha and a mitzvah, you're getting.
2 separate mitzvot, exactly.
I say beracha on food and I'm eating something healthy.
2
So
separate
that's
mitzvot,
separate.
exactly. So we say the beracha is over la'asiyat mitzvah. The beracha should be said before I do the mitzvah, but each one is an independent mitzvah. So let's just recap quickly. Said,
What about lighting the candles and saying the beracha as you're doing it?
yeah, you can do that. Great. You could do that. Very nice. Yes, very nice. So just to pull it together quickly, we said that there's a certain energy in the seasons. HaKadosh Baruch Hu starts with giving a certain energy and definition to the seasons, and then he narrows it down to the months. So a month has an energy, and we listed a few examples. The energy in the month of Kislev is yeda, wisdom, knowledge, the greater, easiest access to knowledge that you get all year round. Therefore, this is the month of Chokhmah, or the month of knowledge. Therefore, if we're going to beat somebody on the knowledge side, on the access to the greatest intellect, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're only going to beat him in Kislev. By the way, another point which I didn't mention, adding on to this, the main thing that proliferated after the miracle of the Maccabees was the oral law. For the 200 years, until the temple was destroyed, right? We had the greatest sages in the oral law, and that was pushed out and formalized, and without the victory of the miracle of the Maccabees, we would never had the proliferation of the oral law of Torah Shebe'al Peh, and we would have been finished. So it all connects together. Knowledge, yeda, Torah Shebe'al Peh, it's all the same. Yeah.
What you're saying is if you access or attempt to access and grab onto that knowledge, you can have access to that when
You can have access what?
you.
Without question. Without question.
Can I just say something, like maybe a little side, but we have the light every Shabbat, like it's the same.
That's right.
it's the same
Very,
color,
very
like,
nice. There's a drop difference. Our rabbis asked that exact question. Isn't the light of Shabbat the same light? And they say that it really isn't, because Ner and Hanukkah are one and the same. So this is light and this is light. On Shabbat, there's Ner and Shabbat. Ner is one of the elements of Shabbat. And I can be neheneh, I can enjoy the light of Shabbat to warm my home, where the only enjoyment I should take from the light of Hanukkah is that intellectual surge and pining and so on. That's a slight difference.
You forgot to mention the most important, that the women don't have to work.
Right, some people, I don't know, some rabbis say that the women shouldn't work, for 30 minutes while the candles are burning. But to make it clear, we're talking about heavy lifting, so that's why I didn't mention it. Okay, heavy lifting.
You can't get away with it.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you. Helen, Leslie, great to have you on the.
Thank you.